Hello, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. My name's Scott Silverman. I'm one of the co-founders of CommerceNext. We're a community and conference for digital retailers. And welcome to webinar number 4 on tailoring messaging in the wake of COVID-19. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and making time to join or listen to the replay. I have a few important thank yous before we get started. First, I want to thank our speakers today, Bill Schneider, who is VP of Product Marketing at SheerID, Kathy Thomas, who's Chief Strategy Officer at Half Price Books, and Leslie Berthy, VP of Marketing at FabFitFun. Unfortunately, Matt Kness from Lucky Brand had an emergency meeting and had to cancel at the last minute. So we also want to give a big thank you to the digital retailers that continue participating in CommerceNext's merchant surveys. These are providing really valuable information. What's unique is that where you can provide a point of view from the merchant's perspective. And we hope that you're patient with us sending out the request to fill out the survey. And again, we're really grateful for everyone doing that. And finally, I want to thank today's sponsor, SheerID, for supporting our webinar today. And we're going to be hearing Bill Schneider from SheerID in a little bit, who has some fresh research that he's going to share. So the agenda for today, I just have a couple housekeeping notes. Then I want to share some top-line results from the newest CommerceNext survey, a couple relevant data points from previous CommerceNext surveys. We'll hear Bill's research. We have some live polls from the audience, and then we'll have a panel discussion. So as far as the housekeeping notes, please don't worry about missing anything. This is being recorded and it'll be available for replay by tomorrow. And I just want to show you a couple things that are on your screen so you don't miss anything during the webinar. So if you look on the upper right, you'll see Q&A, polls, handouts. These are kind of the key areas you want to focus in on. If you want to ask a question at any time, just enter it in there. And there's also, we'll be doing the polls, and we'll show you a little bit more about the polls as we're going through. And then last, a lot of people ask for the handouts. If you want to download the slides, again, if you look in that upper right, there's a handouts button there. Just click on that and you can download the handout and the deck from today. And then finally, for those that are listening on the replay, on the bottom right, there's a button there where you can see both the handouts and the results of the live polls that we do. So we were in the field with CommerceNext merchant surveys on Monday and Tuesday of this week. So this is very fresh. And we're hearing a little bit of good news. So the question was, what's your e-commerce revenue? How's it relative to plan for the 2-week period, March 29th to April 11th? And I believe this is the first time where we've seen ahead of plan outpacing those that were below plan. And this is across 113 merchants that answered this question. And then we had one other question that I wanted to point out, and this was just a general sense of optimism compared to the last week. This is the first time we asked this question in the survey, but it was nice to see that definitely there's a lot of folks that are feeling about the same, but certainly those that are more optimistic are outnumbering those that are less optimistic. So it's good to see a little bit of good news. This is our one extra bonus. I'm calling this the not tax day research bonus. In our first webinar, we included some consumer data from BizRate Insights, and we have since had some conversations with them, and they're willing to field consumer questions on our behalf. And we love to crowdsource ideas. What do you want to ask consumers? What are they thinking about? How are they feeling? So if you have any questions, send me an email, scott@commercenext.com, with any suggestions that you have, and we will take a look at everything that comes in. And hopefully we'll be able to field some of those and have the results of those available to you in future webinars and on the CommerceNext blog. So jumping into today's topic around the importance of messaging, I just wanted to provide a very high level view of our way of thinking about this, in that the brands that came out of the 2008 financial crisis the most quickly, in fact 9 times faster, were the strongest brands coming in. And certainly messaging is a big part of that. And that's part of why we wanted to have this webinar on this topic, because it is so important. Messaging is obviously changing. This was from a survey we did a few weeks ago, and we were asking about really the tone. And as you can see, there's a lot of adjusting to sympathy and compassion, but there's also merchants and retailers that are focused on adjusting message to position themselves as escape or entertainment. There's opportunities to talk about some charitable tie-ins and certainly promotions, which I think if we were to ask this question today, that those numbers would probably even be higher, as we're seeing the promotional environment increase a bit. We also did one of our live polls that I thought I would bring back. And just for a point of reference around email frequency, this was done on April 4th webinar, where about half of the retailers were decreasing their frequency and about a third were increasing their frequency. And it's going to vary from brand to brand. And then finally, just want to remind everyone of this very kind of heartening trend that we're seeing, and certainly a good opportunity to do some messaging, is how so many retailers and brands are leveraging their manufacturing capabilities to help with the crisis and manufacturing protective gear for first line, folks, masks, face shields, that type of thing. So with that, I wanted to turn things over to Bill, and he's going to tell us about how consumers are feeling, and particularly in some specific segments.
Thanks, Scott. And hello, everybody. Let me briefly introduce ShareID in case you are not familiar with ShareID before we jump into the research. So ShareID is an identity marketing platform. We work with hundreds of leading brands to engage and instantly verify consumers that are part of a consumer tribe, like students, teachers, first responders, and the military, for their personalized offers. And because the offer is just for a group, it reinforces a sense of recognition and belonging that generates a high level of relevance and connection. And these are great ways typically to win new customers, and in this time also demonstrate a sense of support and goodwill in the community. So like many of you, we have been closely monitoring the consumer sentiment in the new environment that we find ourselves in, to understand what consumers are specifically looking for from brands, and how that will impact their spending patterns and their affinity to certain brands. And there's been some very good research that's been out there that really support a couple of key trends that I wanted to touch on real quick. And those are that, in general, people want brands to help health workers and other affected populations. There is very strong agreement among that point, among a number of research reports. They also want brands to focus on how they can solve problems that are tangible and fast, not just broad-based promotions to generate short-term sales. And then the last piece was they're really looking for brands and have a lot of trust and faith in brands to provide those solutions to market faster than some of the other institutions that are providing support, particularly with state, local, and federal government. So this is a great kind of hat tip to brands on what consumers are expecting for brands and how they can help support them in the environment that we find ourselves in right now. So we wanted to expand on those findings and find out what consumers in these affected populations, which are pictured here, were looking for from brands. And to find out, we surveyed nearly 2,400 people, 2,399 to be exact, between March 26th and April 2nd in the consumer groups that the coronavirus has impacted disproportionately. These are nurses and first responders that are on the front line of the healthcare crisis, teachers and college students, seniors, and military. Combined, these groups represent 180 million U.S. consumers, or about 70% of those consumers over the age of 18. So a very representative group in our community. So let's dive into the research. So the first question that we asked was describe the emotional state that best captures how you feel in light of the coronavirus. And in a word, the general mood is one of anxiety. 55% of all respondents said that the pandemic has made them feel more anxious, and that number is even higher for certain populations like nurses at 61% and teachers at 63%. 45% of all respondents also reported feeling frustrated. In particular, college students rated this even higher at 53%, which is likely because many had to move home and shift to online learning. And many reported feeling overwhelmed. Consumers want help managing the new environment. This was especially the case for teachers and students as they reset the classroom experience, and nurses and first responders as they are providing frontline health support. Surprisingly, seniors were the least overwhelmed at 20%, and this may be because they aren't feeling the financial or employment burdens of the other groups. We also asked positive attributes on how they feel, and as you can expect, those didn't score very well. What these groups weren't feeling was assured. Less than 1 in 4 of all the consumers that we polled felt confident, and even less felt unconcerned or resilient. So we then asked, well, how can brands help? So in addition to the options that you see on the slide, we also offer different options like extending return times or waiving penalties or fees and using reassuring messaging. And what we found was the top performers were options that provided tangible results. 68% of all respondents said they wanted brands to donate to programs that provide direct support for medical workers, and 67% wanted brands to donate to people who have lost wages. So that is top of mind for them. All the groups also want brands to help prevent infections. More than half of those surveyed wanted brands to explain the measures that they're taking to mitigate the spread of the virus, with seniors in particular at 60% wanting those explanations the most. What makes this even more striking is that survey respondents rated these actions that serve the greater good higher than receiving a personal cost savings, although receiving a discount for their group performed well, with 53% indicating a preference for this option when compared to the other options. So we wanted to look into this a step further, and then we asked consumers directly if they wanted to receive a discount within the next 90 days, and 88% said yes, and 89% said it would positively impact their relationship with the brand. So, examples of brands doing this are surfacing across industries, and Leslie with FabFitFun is going to talk a bit about their Healthcare Heroes bundle. And we've seen other cases in other industries as well, like one of our customers, Headspace, is helping with healthcare providers manage their stress through their meditation app, which is a great connection between their brand promise on health and wellness and supporting people in the health and wellness community. Consumers in our survey strongly affirm these types of actions. Across all consumer tribes, 98% of survey respondents said they want to hear about promotions that were offered exclusively to people in their profession or life stage. We then asked them, how would a personalized offer make them feel? And this data is particularly interesting to consider in light of where I started earlier with talking about universal feelings by consumers of feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Our survey revealed that these types of offers provide the kind of care that they want from brands. More than 58% of nurses, first responders, teachers, seniors, and military, in essence, every consumer tribe across the board, said these offers made them feel valued. And 2/3 or more said these offers made them feel thankful. So the survey also suggests that these consumers aren't just looking for a great deal. Less than 1 in 3 consumers across all tribes said the personalized offers made them feel excited, which is particularly interesting as we polled college students back in February before social distancing was the norm. And back in February, which seems like an eon ago, 75% of college students reported feeling excited about receiving an offer. So the impact of these offers is shifting from one of excitement for oneself to getting a great deal to being grateful of being thought of and recognized by the brand in this time of need. We then asked them, which kind of offer would be most appealing? And as stated earlier, consumers are looking for tangible value. So more than 60% of all groups said free shipping had the greatest appeal. And that number was even higher for students at 65%, seniors and teachers at 68%. Shipping is clearly top of mind as everybody is now at home. The next 2 options that scored best were 20% off offers and a free gift. BOGO's buy one, get ones also performed well with nurses at 54% and seniors at 52%. The promotions that didn't appeal to consumers as strongly were just as noteworthy. Less than 1/3 of all respondents wanted upgraded loyalty status and an additional or additional customer service, and only 26% chose a VIP experience. So when it comes to making consumers feel supported, substance obviously matters in this environment. We then asked, how would an offer of this type impact your relationship with the brand? And we found that overall, 93% said it would positively impact their relationship, with 40% saying they would make a purchase from a brand that they hadn't shopped with before, which performed particularly well with teachers at 44% and nurses at 47%. And 60% said a personalized offer would make them promote that brand to friends and family. Nurses in particular indicated a higher likelihood to share the offer at 64%. We then asked how they want to hear about these offers. And in addition to the options on the slide, we also offered options like through social media, through TV or broadcast radio, through the brand's website, direct mail, or referrals from other people just like them in their professional life stage. And that was the top performer. The top performer was others just like them, with 99% preferring this option, showing the value of word of mouth. And we found through other research that these types of offers have a high word of mouth effect, as people know other people just like them who would benefit, which helps spread the message and make your cost of acquisition more efficient. But as far as the channels that you directly control, email is still king of the hill. And this was even true for college students, although SMS did score higher with this group at 27%, was the highest of all. And social also performed very well with this group as well. So then lastly, we asked, what are the categories they're most interested in receiving a discount or promotion in the next 90 days? And meal delivery and takeout took the top spot, with nearly 60% across the board, as people are looking to have meals delivered to their home. Beauty and self-care was next on the list, with 30% indicating interest. And this option performed particularly well with nurses and students, with 36% of nurses preferring this option. Apparel also scored well, with 30% of all respondents showing interest, led by college students and teachers at 37% each. And craft and home improvement came in with 25% interest across the board, with particular interest from teachers at 34%. So bottom line, consumers are looking to brands for support. They are receptive to these offers that recognize the challenges their consumer group is experiencing, and they are receptive to brands that are providing community support with particular emphasis on health workers and affected populations. So that's the end of my research here. Scott, back over to you.
Thanks. So, so what we're going to do next, first, I wanted to kind of ask everyone that's listening if they have been, you know, getting involved in special offers or discounts for some of these populations, and then we're going to hear some, you know, examples from both Leslie at FabFitFun and Kathy at Half Price Books around a teacher appreciation holiday. So for the Q&A, what we're going to do, just to remind you how this works, again, you want to look in that upper right, and I'm going to start the polling, and then at any point when it's closed, you can go back and you'll see the open and closed polls, and you can look for the closed polls and see the results. So we're going to get started here. The first question, I'm going to start polling it, and this is asking, you know, are you offering special promotions or discounts to teachers, nurses, doctors, law enforcement, military, or other COVID-19 frontline groups? So you guys can all begin voting as soon as you see the questions. So it looks like around a quarter of the folks are doing this so far. Maybe a little bit less. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And now I'm gonna ask Leslie to tell us a little bit about what they've been doing with their Healthcare Heroes program.
Thanks, Scott. So amid this COVID-19 environment that we're living in, we've pivoted a few business practices and added a couple initiatives during this time to serve, you know, not only our community of members that we currently have, but also to those serving us on the front lines during these unprecedented times. So a few initiatives that we've incorporated are, you know, partnering with Share ID to run our Healthcare Heroes initiative, which I'll go into. We also have a content platform called FabFitFun TV. So this typically lives behind our paywall and is exclusive content that we've licensed and created exclusively for our members. But what we did was we opened this up and made it available to everyone. So while everyone was sheltering in place, we wanted to make sure that people could access our thousands of workout, cooking, self-help, and wellness videos that we have in our archive. And then we typically partner with a nonprofit every single season. So, you know, up to 4 different charities a year. And we still have our current one, Dress for Success, which is doing a lot in this time. But we wanted to add something that was especially relevant given the time. So we added No Kid Hungry as our spring charity partner. And so what they do is provide meals to, you know, children in poverty who don't have access to meals. And what they're doing now is focusing especially on people or children who are, you know, at risk because they depend on going to school to get their meals. So those are just some of the things that we've done. If you look at the slide, I'll go into what we did with Share ID, which was really exciting. So, you know, at the onset and, you know, obviously looking at the news and reading news, we see how the people on the front lines, particularly doctors and nurses and other people in hospitals are putting themselves at risk. So, you know, we across FabFitFun, especially our merch team, looked and said, okay, we're all about wellness, and we have personal hygiene products, and that's just a part of our business model. And so we looked at different areas where we could pull inventory and put together a self-care bundle that we could offer to nurses and doctors during this time. So if you look at the slides in the middle there where you see To Our Healthcare Heroes, we created an exclusive landing page and then that we shared via our social media channels. So that big thank you on Instagram was the post that we used as an example to launch this initiative. And it was really awesome to partner with SheerID because they have this great functionality where they can help us verify. So a lot of different companies were doing things like this. We had an existing partnership with SheerID. We had worked with them in the past, with a promotion for veterans. And so we went to SheerID and asked them what sort of solutions they could help us with. And so they have, through their platform, we were able to easily verify these healthcare workers. So we didn't have to, ask for any sort of personal identifiable information and hold that information ourselves. And we put the iframe on the page, and then you see, if you're a healthcare worker, you would go and enter your information. Once you're verified, a code would pop up that was exclusive to you. Then you would go back to the page, enter the code, and that's how you would get your bundle. So that was a really exciting thing that we were able to do that was powered by SheerID. Moving on, you'll just see we also opened up our FabFitFun TV content. So there's some social posts that we did on Instagram as an example, and this is an example of some of the messaging that we've had throughout this period to speak to the people who are affected and open up our membership to other people on the front lines or sheltering at home who might not know about FabFitFun but wanted to open up our platform so they could get a peek in to see what we're all about.
Great, thanks.
I think that's it, Scott.
Thanks,
hand it back to
Leslie.
you.
I wanted to ask Kathy at Half Price Books to talk a little bit about what they're doing or plan to do related to like the upcoming Teacher Appreciation Holiday.
Well, okay, thanks, Scott. First of all, we are working with a local hospital here in Dallas, giving free books to some of the different healthcare providers around the Dallas area. So that's a program we're really excited about. But we love our teachers, and we have a very involved teacher librarian discount program that we've offered and have been supporting teachers for years. So obviously, they're a very good and important group to us. And May 5th is Teacher Appreciation Day. So we are doing a special promotion to basically highlight that group. We're giving them additional discounts, tote bags, anything to make sure the teachers know that we love them and we know they have a tough job. And it was great because we had a teacher call one of our stores last week and they needed 300 copies of a book for a particular class. And so we were able to work with them individually about getting all the books from all of our different stores and be able to supply them, because if they don't have the books for the class, they cannot require that particular title for the students to read. So I think that, anything we can do with our teachers and for our teachers. And then we also have a summer reading program that we start launching in May, and we sort of moved that program up. And we go after our teacher mailing list and we highlight, getting students to read currently, but also all summer long. So it's a long-term promotion we're working with teachers on.
Great. So I'm going to shift now to our panel discussion, and we're going to broaden the conversation around kind of more thinking about messaging and marketing strategically and how that's coming along in your organization. So I wanted to do, before we get into that conversation, I wanted to do a couple instant poll questions. And also I want to remind everyone, we do have Q&A. Again, if you look on that upper right, you'll see the Q&A area. If there's any questions you want to ask to the panelists, we'll see those and we'll be able to incorporate those into the panel discussion as well. But I wanted to start with the first of two more live poll questions. And this is asking, on a scale of 5 being best and 1 being worst, how effective has your organization slash leadership been in quickly and effectively adjusting marketing messages? So kind of just thinking as a whole, how well that's coming along. And this is 100% anonymous, so you can answer without any concerns that it'll be shared. So these results are pretty encouraging. I mean, we're seeing that there's a pretty high level of satisfaction. There's definitely more 5 and 4s than anything else. So I'm glad to see everyone's feeling pretty satisfied in how your organizations are making this adjustment, which I'm sure is not easy at all. So I'm going to close this poll and go to the next question. This is the last question we're going to ask, and this is a even more broader strategic question. So on a scale of 5 to 1, 5 being strongest and 1 being weakest, how would you rate the current level of investment and commitment from leadership to position your brand for success post-pandemic? So are there clear plans and a demonstration of commitment from leadership to build on your strengths during this time? This is also very encouraging. We're seeing no one's marking very weak, so glad to see we have some organizations that are forward-looking that are listening in on the webinar. So that's great. All right, so I think that I'm going to close this poll. Again, you can always go back to that polls area on the webinar interface and see those and download those later. But I want to go into our panel discussion and just start very broadly. Whoops, I went ahead a little bit. So start very broadly and just asking, each of the panelists, what has been your messaging strategy during this period? How does it differ from pre-COVID? And also, help us understand where your existing technology is coming into play here, because I know a lot of digital retailers are taking advantage of things like machine learning or AI to automate messaging, and sometimes it's hard to let the machines take control, especially in a situation like now where messaging can be very sensitive. But Leslie, I'd like to start with you. If you could give us a kind of a high-level overview of how you've been shifting your messaging, in addition to some of the things that you already told us about with the healthcare heroes.
Sure, thanks. So look, at FabFitFun, our mission has always been to deliver happiness and well-being to everyone, everywhere. And that's the message we're always trying to get out through our various marketing channels. We've consistently used this before and during COVID-19. So, particularly in this time, going back to the research we saw earlier during this, a lot of people out there are feeling very anxious and overwhelmed. So what we're finding now is that consumers are really seeking self-care and personal happiness and really leaning into the product that we're offering, which is really awesome. I already went into some of the business practices that we've done, but I think for us, it's mostly about just meeting consumers where they are and being extremely authentic, right? So the good news for us is that our messaging is really on point. Like I said, we're always about happiness, well-being, self-care. These are messages that we're always trying to get across. And what's been nice is that, we can lean into this even more. And I think just from an execution standpoint, it's just looking at everything that's going out and making sure that, you have that eye on it and making sure that things, make sense. So even going into, summer and thinking we ship products to people, are people going to be out this summer in the same way that they've been out in the past, right? And like, how do you change that? And how do you take what you have existing and make sure it's still relevant? But on a human to human level, it's really been leaning into the values that we've always had.
Kathy, can you help us, give us a quick overview as well from Half Price Books?
Well, I think, obviously we are sending more coupons and promoting different programs that we have for the different stores. But basically, our curbside pickup has really exploded across the country. And what we've had to work very hard at is each of the different counties and cities, the laws are different. And they literally change every week, where one city you could do curbside pickup, but then the next week the governor decides that we're not essential business, so we can't. So our messaging is very, very, we have to stay very current with it, and we're constantly tweaking and targeting each of our emails depending on the city we're in and how we're promoting it, and when to start it again and when we have to stop it. So I think being fluid and available has been one of the best things that we're able to do. And frankly, your employees, we're listening to our district managers and regional managers. We're having, 3 times a week meeting with them because we want to know what's happening in that city so we can address the concerns of that particular market. Because I think that's when, we are selling more puzzles and we're selling more stuff to teachers. But then, we're also selling a lot of self-help books because there's a lot of people out of work. So we're kind of marketing different messages depending on what's happening in that particular area of the country.
And maybe just a little bit to follow up on that, Kathy, kind of going back to that, one of the live poll questions on, how effective organizations have been at making the adjustment to marketing messaging. Is there anything you can share? I mean, we saw in the poll that, folks are feeling like, organizations have done a pretty good job of making that adjustment. Is there anything you can share of what's worked in particular at Half Price Books, of kind of getting everybody to kind of sing from the same songbook?
Well, I think that, we've introduced some grab bag programs where all of a sudden, the stores are very much involved and they're putting boxes of mysteries together and children's books, and we're selling them in a box. And it's been great because they can go by a store or order online a grab bag. So that is something that our stores have had a lot of fun with and are actually stepping up and doing it. I think that we are, committed to reacting to the marketplace and wondering how we can do more to actually meet the needs of these different, the different groups that are out there and the different customers. And I think that we have done, we launched a program literally in 2 days where a customer can drive up to our store and go to our website and search the inventory for that particular store. And I know that doesn't seem like a very revolutionary thing for a lot of retailers, but we sell 50% of our merchandise to 60% are used books. So we get them from the customers. So the inventory is kind of constantly changing, and we're constantly adding inventory and deleting inventory. So each of our stores' inventory is very unique to that location. So we're able to launch that quickly. People can sit outside of their car, sit outside in their car, pull up our website, know every item that's in that store, and be able to just call and say, okay, I need that James Patterson book, or I like the puzzle with the picture of the balloons on it, and give us your credit card, and we'll stick it out on the curb. So it's really great the way our employees have stepped up, and basically how technology has helped that happen.
So we're having this.
That's a good.
Yeah. Go ahead,
No,
Leslie.
sorry, Leslie. No, I was just gonna. It was really interesting listening to Kathy talk because it reminds me of an offline behavior that I'm also seeing online at Fabfit Fun, which is people really want to treat themselves to something right now. Treat themselves to something that brings home, self-care or happiness or joy, and whether that can be a self-care book or puzzles and whatnot. We're seeing the same sort of behavior online. We have a similar concept of, these bundles. I talked about the healthcare bundles, but, a similar sort of online concept where we put together these mystery self-care bundles for our members as well. And people are grabbing those up and just wanting to, get a spot of happiness in their lives, I think.
So I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into, this idea of kind of what you're hearing from your customers, the sentiment from them. And obviously, when you're thinking about being an effective communicator and the marketing messages, you really need to have your finger on the pulse of your customer. And we saw some great kind of high level data that Bill shared across many other, consumers of multiple brands. But you need to really understand your particular customer. And I'd be interested to hear, Leslie and then Kathy, a little bit about, what are the processes that you're using to make sure that you are collecting that customer sentiment, that you do have a really good feel for what your customer is going through and what they're feeling and how they're, how they want to interact with you. Is that,
that's a great question.
yeah, through social media, through customer service reps that are having conversations, and interested to hear where that data and information is coming from and what processes you're using.
Yeah, happy to answer that. So, look, we definitely look at customer sentiment all the time. So it starts, through our social and customer service channels. And we also have our online community forum, which is such a special aspect of our business. We consult our community for feedback and honest dialogue for our members daily. And it's funny, our co-founder, Katie, often says that our community, which is the social platform for our members, that lives behind the paywall, is our fourth co-founder. And so, a lot of the data that Bill shared is really in line with what we're seeing too. But as things sort of started to devolve into our current normal, I think we were just as nervous as some of the other retailers out there too. We have a product, we were able to sell it, but would customers want to buy what we're selling? Would it seem insensitive to, offer discounts, or what did they want to see? But a lot of the early indicators we got were through social love, proactive social love that we got through people on social media. So I'm thinking of tweets that came in that said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for FabFitFun," and people would send us pictures, of them sitting in their bathtub with like face masks and towels on their head, and show us the way that they're coping, during this not normal time. To people saying how they were at other online retailers and, had such a huge basket size. They, quote unquote, finally caved and decided to try FabFitFun, and they were really excited to get their box. So, that was a great leading indicator that people were liking and reacting to what we were doing. So we continued that. And then we've always had, through our online forum, our community, a great dialogue with our members. When they're happy, they let us know, and when they're not happy, they let us know too. So not only is the community invaluable for the feedback it provides us on our business, but it allows our members to connect with us and with each other too. So we found that there was a lot of communication between our members during this time of social distancing, where people were alone and potentially feeling lonely or needed to get out. So it's been great to also jump into those conversations. And we oftentimes just ask members, what they want to see. We've seen things from, members creating online talent shows to participating in our FabFitFun book club. And we react and change our content strategy by creating content that helps feed, what we're seeing as a need out there.
And Kathy, anything you want to add on how you're assessing customer sentiment?
Well, I think that, obviously we're using social media, and social media has been always valuable because our customers actually absolutely love us. So they respond very favorably on social media. But we have had a lot of, success with just our customers calling our stores and have at that personal connection. We have had employees go and use their phone, videotape a bookshelf or a shelf of puzzles, and talking to the customer and saying, "Oh, I want that puzzle, or I want that book." They've been really great at it, and I think that sort of anything you can do personal touching at this time is very important. We've had we've had one particular law student in one of our cities that the library was closed, and she called one of our stores, and our employee went and found the book she was reading that she needed, read the quote to her about what she needed for one of her classes because she couldn't get the book quick enough and they didn't have curbside in that particular city. And the customer was great because she did a big shout out to Susan, who was went above and beyond. So I think it's an opportunity to highlight your employees as much as your company, because your employees are your company. And I think that kind of connection, anything you can do to promote your employees and their resources. I mean, we've had employees that have used their children to post YouTube videos of putting together kits, just building bridges and these different kits that are available from our stores. We've had employees posting on their personal Facebook pages pictures of them in the store and promoting different products that we carry. And so we've had a lot of great guerrilla marketing, just basic, that different employees and people are trying, which we absolutely love seeing that excitement. And I think that is very genuine, and it's not something coming from corporate. It's very individually city-centric, which we really like about that.
Yeah, that's great to hear how you're able to, all of those employees are able to be such great contributors to the organization. There was a specific question for Bill at Share ID. Doug Jensen wanted to know how you verify healthcare worker status. Bill, could you explain that?
Sure, of course. Yeah, we have authoritative data sources that we work with. There's actually 9,000 different authoritative data sources that we have collected and are data partners of ours that we have access to, so that in the case where we need to verify status of somebody, a group like nurses, we can work with those data sources. An example might be like the ANA, the American Nurses Association, that provides us with an access to their source. And basically what happens there is when we get the request in from the form, we, as Leslie pointed out, there's a few pieces of information that's required there. We capture that. We do a quick lookup and ping to the data source to see if there's an active record there. And if there is an active record, fantastic. Then we provide a true value to that record and pass that on to the reward code. And if we don't have an active record, that's immediately accessible. And that can be, a number of different reasons. Maybe they mistyped their name, maybe they're using a different name. We also have a document review process in place so that somebody can upload a document and we have document reviewers standing by that can verify that in just a matter of, in some cases, usually a matter of seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes.
Great, thank you for explaining that. I wanted to talk about discounts. That's been something that came up in Bill's presentation, and I think pre-COVID, it was essentially it's kind of a dirty word in retail and with brands, and it's referred to as an addiction, other negative connotations like that, and these concerns that once you begin discounting, your customers are going to forever expect it. There's impact it can have on the brand, but we're in a different period, and I wanted to kind of hear your point of view of, and maybe beginning with you, Leslie, of where as a brand, have you been discounting, and how is that pre-COVID, and how has that changed now, and how did you come to some of the decisions about how you were going to either maintain or be more or less promotional or discounting?
Yeah, so we haven't I would say we haven't added any incremental discounts. Fortunately, we haven't had to. I think everything that you said about discounting in general is I totally agree with it, and I'm very weary of discounts, and so we have been very steady at holding the line without having to do additional discounts. That being said, I will say, not to use the dirty word discount, I'll say value. Value is definitely one of our value props within the company. And so, our ongoing marketing tagline across everything, pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, obviously we test different things, but it's, $49.99 for over $200 worth of amazing products. And so I'm finding that value messaging that's always been there is resonating with people even more. And then even in our e-commerce, flash sales that we do, there's always a heavy, again, I won't call it discounting, but there's a heavy value component. That's why it's behind the paywall and you have to be a member to access those prices. So we've found that, I think it's a comparative thing that we haven't had to lean any more into that because what we already do is resonating. Like that tweet example I shared earlier, someone saying, I was at another awesome retailer, but, whether or not they were discounting, it's just still not the same as FabFitFun, and you already get so much value. And I think, because we offer such an array of products that people can kind of try, I found them to be very open to that. And the messaging that I'm seeing in our community, across social and, through our CX agents are that people are just excited to try new things and they're a little bit bored at home. And so FabFitFun can offer a bright spot there. So no incremental discounting yet, but we are, monitoring things like retention. And I think that's the other side of it, right? So we are a subscription business and, I'm grateful for everybody who's signing up, but we're monitoring all our KPIs. Discounting is definitely a lever that we have pulled in the past. We try not to, it's not part of our typical marketing mix. But we'll be looking at retention with a close eye and hopefully able to keep these members, in the ongoing months, post-COVID as well.
And Bill, I'm interested to hear your point of view. I mean, you must be in conversations debating discounting, working with Share ID clients on a regular basis, and you've probably been hearing what those conversations were before COVID and what they have been now. And I would also share one other piece of data from our survey. We've seen this when we look at the merchants that are the higher performers that are more ahead of plan and ask them, why do you think that's, what are the biggest contributing factors? Aggressive discounting and promotions is the number one factor for them, that's driving that. So, again, it's, in many situations, it's not ideal, but often it can drive volume. But Bill, I'm interested, what have you been hearing about discounts and what are the kind of conversations that you've been a part of related to that?
Yeah, sure. So, what we've been recommending, typically what we have when brands are coming to us is they want to do focus promotions to a specific population. So, broad-based discounts are something that we typically don't recommend because of the fact that you can erode your brand and your and overall margin in general, and that's where brands are coming to us to provide a focused discount or promotion or offer to a specific population. And what we've seen here recently is really a shift in who that offer is going to. So in the past, we had an inordinate amount of focus on the student population, and clearly that population is still a population that's in need. But what we're seeing is that shift moving towards nurses, doctors, and first responders as people overall are recognizing that that's a group and population that needs support, and they want to support them in general. There's a lot of goodwill that is associated along with recognizing those groups. And so there's, a dual benefit there from corporate goodwill that gets established, as well as the opportunity to start a new customer relationship that is in that population. And because you are just targeting that group, and you're protecting the offer in this case with verification to make sure that it's just going to that group, you have the ability of getting some of those benefits around new customers, goodwill, but not the margin erosion that you might see from broad-based discounting.
Great. So we have time for maybe one or two more questions. We still could take one from some of the listeners if you want to enter those through the webinar interface, but wanted to kind of move on to, maybe like a good way to begin wrapping up the conversation. And that's, referring, I mentioned kind of the beginning of the webinar, the strong brands come out of these kind of situations much more quickly. We got some instant poll input as well on kind of how everyone's feeling about the current level of investment and commitment to positioning your brand for success after the pandemic. But I wanted to ask the question of the panel, what are your thoughts on looking at this as a time to invest in your brand, in your customer experience, as a way to, now at this moment, so that when things do resume, you'll be in a better position to kind of come out of it and be stronger and be a good performer. So, Kathy, do you want to start with that and help us understand your point of view there?
Well, I think that, there's obviously we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen at the end of all of this, if it ever ends. But, we have an opportunity, we think right now, because Amazon is, really, we've been competing with them for books since they started, because they started selling books online. And they are, providing essential items currently for people. And so we think, and the book community and the industry thinks, that there's an opportunity to go after that, and that people want to shop local and they want to shop smaller retailers. And this is an opportunity for us to capitalize on it. And we have noticed that. We have noticed it. We've actually gone after some discounts with some of that. I think that we are going to come stronger. At the end of this, we will be stronger. And I think more people are turning to us for books where they used to turn to Amazon. So we're capitalizing on some competition that, is kind of interested in other areas right now. And I think that is something that people have to be aware of, just as we marketers. Everyone's searching online, but there is a lot of competition out there, and any way that you could position your brand a little better and a little different and a little bit more positive, then you need to be doing it. And it's tough because you're being told by your CFO to cut budgets, and that's why we've started up some basic good old-fashioned guerrilla marketing. But we haven't cut all of our budget, because we know that this is a great time to build customers, because so many of them are at home for our website.
Leslie, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for that, Kathy. Look, I think this is so personal to each brand, but I do think that brand will continue to be invested in and evolved. COVID will be a part of every human story going forward and will be integrated in the way we speak to consumers. And I think that, what we're finding is that people want to know who we are and, what we stand for as a brand. And in my opinion, I think that coming out of this, that will be more important as ever. So I think consistent themes that I've heard here are just, speaking to your consumers, listening to them, most of all, finding ways like our healthcare heroes or, all of the curbside pivots that Kathy's made to meet them where they are. And so, we've had, continual pivots in our business model through this. So, we heard that our members, that they were shopping and it was bringing them joy. They were sharing with us some of the products that they were having trouble finding. And so we looked as we were merching the sales, and we, looking back at our plans and saying, what else can we do? What else can we add? What other sorts of, shop in shops can we facilitate to give them more of the products that they need? And I think that's really resonating. So coming out of this, I hope that our customers will see that when they spoke, we listened and we did everything in our power to, bring them what they needed.
Great. And Bill, why don't we let you have the final word here on this question?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks. And I would just, I'd echo what Leslie and Kathy said. I think it's interesting. This is a very interesting time where everybody is having a very similar moment, and we're all focused on the same thing. And I think because of that, there's a ton of energy and focus on that very, very track. And we're hearing very directly from consumers that they're looking for support. They're looking for brands that are helping them get the little things and the necessary things on in their lives. And those can be simple indulgences like Leslie was talking about with the health and wellness bundles that they have. And then it can also be things like educational resources, like what Kathy was talking about for teachers. And when brands are aligned on supporting their purpose and aligning with those populations that are lining up for that purpose and doing it well, I think that's when you see the acceleration that comes out of that you showed in your graph, where brands can come out stronger out of these things. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I want to thank our panelists again, Bill, Leslie, and Kathy, for spending some time and sharing your insights with our community. It's especially important during times when we're in uncharted territory and we all need to learn from one another. And that's what's great about these kind of communities. So thank you all so much for being a part of this and contributing your thoughts and your ideas. Again, I want to remind everyone, CommerceNext has a resource center where we house our research, data from other sources, upcoming webinars, replays of past webinars. It's commercenext.com/COVID. And then the last couple of slides on this deck are some areas where you can help. We've talked about these in some of the past, but certainly take a look at those. I think we're all eager to find different ways where we can contribute and help the situation. But thank you again, everyone, for listening. And we look forward to seeing you again on April 22nd, where we have a webinar that's going to look at business continuity. Have a great rest of the day, and we look forward to